Alright guys, the Championship did not disappoint this weekend. We are back for another episode of the Championship Roundup and here to discuss all of the talking points going on in the league, from the drama at the bottom to the top. And I want to get your guys' verdict on everything going on in the comments down below. Without any further ado, let's just jump in. Starting out with Birmingham up against Blackpool. Blackpool knew they needed the result in this game and they got that over the line, just about keeping alive any faint hopes of survival. They're 3 points off safety with 2 games to play, but the caveat to that is the likes of Huddersfield, Cardiff and Rotherham all have a game in hand, and with QPR delivering that unbelievable result at Burnley this weekend, that sort of put a little bit of space between them and the bottom 3 as well. In terms of Blackpool, this sort of result just goes to beg the question of what would have happened had they made that managerial shift earlier in the season when things clearly weren't working out with McCarthy. Had they made that shift from him to Dobby, who knows if Blackpool would be in a better position right now, because Blackpool have already won as many matches under Dobby as they had under McCarthy in significantly less matches, and credit to them because they had to stick it out in this game. Birmingham had plenty of shots and chances. Grimshaw had a really good game for Blackpool, who's been brought back into the fold by Dobby after Maxwell had been the preferred choice in goal for the vast majority of the season. It was a disastrous goal from Birmingham's point of view to concede. Gifted it to Rodgers, who latched onto it and then squared it for Poveda to have a bit of a tap in. In terms of Blackpool's survival chances, their remaining 2 fixtures are against Millwall and Norwich, who, to be honest, both sides have been a little bit inconsistent themselves recently, but I still think that with 2 games to go and teams above them having games in hand, it'll still be too much of an ask for them to survive from this point onwards, but mathematically it's still doable. Then to Ashton Gate, where we have Bristol City beating Rotherham by 2-1. Bristol City definitely having the better of the first half. It was Conway making the most of his chance to put the home side 1-0 up, and to be honest, they probably should have been a couple more goals up come the half-time interval. Rotherham do make the most of that second half though, get back into it, Jordan Hugill winning a penalty and sticking that away, and there did seem to be a few penalty appeals for each side in this one, only that one given in the end. Bristol City did go on to win it, a really scrappy goal in the end that Rotherham would have been quite disappointed to concede, but Andy Weimann sticking that one away for all 3 points for the home side. In terms of what this means for the relegation picture and Rotherham, they do maintain a 3-point lead over Reading with them losing this weekend, but things getting a little bit twitchy in and around the bottom. Obviously, the big game for Rotherham now is that midweek clash with Cardiff, which we will be predicting in the second half of today's video, because if they do get a result in that game, that'll pretty much get them over the line, but things can change incredibly quickly, as we've seen this weekend in the Championship. Then to quite possibly the most bonkers result we've seen in this Championship season so far. Burnley 1, QPR 2. Now, Burnley had been guilty of taking their foot off the gas in these previous few fixtures. Company had been tinkering around with the squad a little bit, making several changes for their last few matches, but going into this one against QPR, they were full strength. Looking at the squad on paper, I don't think anyone was expecting anything less than a little bit of a battering, if we're being completely honest. And given how the first half of this match had gone, that was the general trend a lot of people were seeing. Burnley had 86% possession, had 17 shots in the first half, but nothing was falling for them. And fair play to QPR, they were putting bodies on the line, getting last-ditch blocks, and that's really what we associate Gareth Ainsworth's sides being all about, having that little bit of backbone to go out on the pitch that this QPR side has been so desperately lacking in this second half of the season. They then get that goal against run of play through field. Manuel Benton equalises with a fantastic goal from the right-hand side, all for Martin to pop up with a winner in the 87th minute. And that result for QPR should just about get them over the line in terms of safety. That result leaves them on 47 points now, and unless all the results were to go against them from this point onwards and they were to lose their final couple of matches, that should just about get them home and dry, which is a huge shock and relief, I suppose, for QPR, because a few weeks ago I really didn't see QPR picking up any points from that point until the end of the season. So to claim a shock-away win at Burnley sums up the Championship and should just about get them over the line in terms of safety for the second half of the season. In terms of Burnley, it continues to add the narrative that they could go and now, seal up the league title away at Blackburn, which will be quite feisty. Next then we had Cardiff playing out a 1-1 draw with Stoke. Stoke's seasons just seems to be dwindling out at the moment. They did take the lead in this one, but after that it was really all about Cardiff and the home side who had the better chances. Sorry, Cabba with a nice finish to get the home side back into it. From that point they were knocking on the door looking for that winner. Were presented with the perfect opportunity to go ahead and do so, but he couldn't convert from the penalty spot. To be fair to Bottom, it was a top save. Cabba had placed it really low down in the bottom corner, but the goalkeeper did well to get across to that one. And I think had you offered Cardiff fans at the start of the week 4 points from fixtures against Watford and Stoke, I think they all would have snapped your hands off. Obviously the attention now turns to that rearranged game with Rotherham to come up in midweek, but as things stand, I mean the QPR result flip the script a little bit at the bottom of the table, but Cardiff are still looking all right at this point in time, particularly if they do get a result away at Rotherham in midweek. Then to a result which both affects the top and bottom of the Championship, Coventry beating Reading 2-1. The playoffs over this last month or so has been equally entertaining and frustrating for pretty much every side involved, because there's been so much inconsistency for all of those sides, and even Coventry, who are probably deemed as one of the more informed sides currently gunning for a place in the top 6, have only won, I think now, 3 of their last 9 Championship fixtures, but they keep ticking over at this current rate. They will go ahead and get over the line, and this result against Reading cannot be underestimated over another weekend where several other top 6 chasers also dropped points, and it was a deserved 3 points in the end. Matty Gullen putting Cov 1-0 up before half time. Nice finish from Lucas Jow, dropping deep, linking up, and then with a tidy finish to make it 1-1, all before Gustavo Hamer went ahead and got on the score sheet to win it for Coventry. The home side had several other chances and probably could have been a little bit more comfortable in the end, but the points on the board are all that matter at this stage, and Coventry now 5th in the table, 66 points with 2 games to go. Very strong position, it has to be said. In terms of Reading, I mean, it's absolutely fascinating that their last 2 games are head-to-head relegation 6-pointers against Wigan and Huddersfield. I do think that there is still some qualities to this Reading side. Obviously, we saw them getting 2 quite unpredictable points maybe in the previous fixtures against Burnley and Luton that no one perhaps saw them picking up results in, but those 2 games right there are going to determine their future. They are currently in the bottom 3, but still everything to play for. We then had Hull beating Watford 1-0, a result which firmly stamps out any faint hopes that Watford might have had of sneaking into the top 6. Don't think that anyone was really taking them as proper top 6 contenders given how they've been playing over these last couple of months, but mathematically still had been possible really up until this game week. It was a Ozan Tufan penalty which was the difference between the 2 sides. Not that much attacking quality and guile between these 2. Hull's only attempt on target came from the penalty spot, and Watford themselves were actually quite unlucky not to have been given a penalty for a handball which Seri seemed to commit inside the box, but nothing was given on that, and just another result which sums up the misery that Watford have been compelled to over these last few months. Does feel like wholesale changes will be on the way at that club over the summer especially, and another season in the Championship, and ultimately a season which has been nothing short of a disaster for Watford. Next then to Norwich against Swansea. This was a must-win game for Norwich to keep alive their top 6 hopes, and they absolutely crumbled. I saw Swansea really taking apart Preston in the first half in midweek, and they went ahead and did that same sort of game plan to Norwich in this one, absolutely carving them apart, and could have been more than 2 goals up at half time. Some excellent interplay, it has to be said, from Swansea, who are one of the form sides in the Championship right now. Since that South Wales derby victory against Cardiff, Swansea have been absolutely flying in the league. That's now 4 consecutive victories and have the faintest hopes, I suppose, of a top 6 spot. They're on 62 points now. With the way they're playing, I think there's every chance that they do go on and win their final 2 matches of this season. They can finish on a maximum of 68 points this season, and my gut feeling says that won't be enough for a top 6 spot, and that patchy bit of form they had earlier in this season is probably going to cost them on that regard, but they're playing some brilliant football at the moment. But from a Norwich point of view, a lot of the stuff we were just saying then about Watford, about this season being a little bit of a disaster, how they've handled the drop from the Premier League to the Championship, I also think that can be applied with this Norwich squad right now. Whenever there seems to have been a pressure match where this Norwich side needs to turn up, we've just seen more and more cracks appearing, and it does feel like quite the big rebuilding job is on the horizon at Carrow Road come come this summer as well. But credit to Swansea, a faint hope still of a top 6 place, but I don't see it personally. Just think they've left it a little bit too late. And I tell you what, Wigan aren't going down without a fight. 2-1 against Millwall to put a spanner in their promotion hopes. And to be honest, this Millwall side has been looking a little bit jaded over these recent weeks. Ever since the resumption from that most recent international break, Millwall haven't been at their sparkling best. Even in that game against North End, when they did get over the line with all 3 points, it's not the vintage Millwall that we've been seeing earlier on in this season. And North End on another day might have got something from that game. In terms of this one in isolation, it leaves Millwall 7th, level on points with Sunderland, who have taken their spot in the top 6 and 1 point behind Coventry. What does perhaps play into Millwall's hands is the fact that their next game up against Blackpool is taking place on the Friday night before the Saturday. So if Millwall can get their act together for that game against Blackpool, who, let's be honest, that won't be the easiest game in the world. They've had a little bit of a bounce recently under Stephen Dobby, but what that game does allow Millwall to do is put pressure on the other promotion chasers if they do win that one on the Friday. Not going to be easy though, particularly with how they're giving up chances at the moment. It was Will Keane who gave Wigan the lead in this one before Saville leveled things up before half time, and then that dramatic winner from Wigan late on to make it 2-1. From a Wigan point of view, it would be bitterly disappointing for that 3-point deduction to be the defining factor between them going down and staying up, and I think that right now there's every chance of that happening. Had it not been for that 3-point deduction, Wigan would be just 1 point from safety right now. They've won their last 2 matches. There's every chance that they win their remaining 2 matches, albeit I'm not sure 46 points will be enough to keep them up. But if they did stay up from this point onwards, it would be one of the greatest escapes. And I feel like Blackburn fans must have aged about 50 years in the past week or so, because to have gone from that last minute drama against Coventry to then have the same thing unfolding against Preston, with us scoring a 94th minute equaliser to massively dent Blackburn's top 6 hopes, it's not been a great week for them, all things considered. 4 consecutive draws for this Rovers side now. It was an interesting game at Deep Dell, certainly one where the momentum swung between both sides. First off, I think it was Preston who were the better of the 2 sides. We had the better chances. Blackburn's sort of false 9 system wasn't really clicking. They didn't look that penetrative in behind, but credit to them, the changes they made in the second half did have the desired effect. Sammy Smodics, with his best sort of Maradona impression, handballing it into the back of the net. Well spotted by the referee. If that one had stood, I would have been absolutely fuming, but rightly so, that was chalked off before Smodics himself did get on the score sheet with a nice finish to make it 1-0 to Rovers. From that point onwards, it's really all about Ryan Hedges racing through on goal in the 94th minute. Has the choice of running to the corner, trying to smash it past Woodman perhaps, but he goes for an audacious chip for no reason whatsoever. Woodman's able to collect it. We throw the ball forward, and in the end it goes down as a Dom Hyam own goal after a nice turn from Liam Delap, who smashes it into the box. It was a bit of a weird atmosphere at full time because it was a great sort of jubilant moment to get that equaliser, but coming into this game it was a must win from a Preston perspective. Yes, we are only 2 points off the top 6 with 2 games to go, but it felt like this needed to be all 3 points for us to realistically stand a chance going into those final 2 matches against Sheffield United and Sunderland. From a Blackburn point of view, that's now 4 consecutive draws. It is still in their own hands. They have 3 games to play. If they win all 3, they will make it into the top 6, but with the way they're playing at the moment, I think that's incredibly hard to see, especially with the fixture difficulty of the games they've got to come, with games against Burnley, Millwall and Luton to play. And this was a bit of a do-or-die match for both West Brom and Sunderland, and it was the away side coming out on top in the end. Sunderland have gone into the top 6 with 2 games to play, and every chance that they go on and snatch a playoff place now, with 2 remaining games against Watford next, who I think Sunderland will be the overwhelming favourites in that game. Then with the final day against Preston, who may be out of the playoff conversation by then. Everything seems to be falling into place for Sunderland, and they had to fight back against the elements in this one. The away side had started the game well and had several chances in the first half, but it was the Baggies who did take the lead on the stroke of half time. Bit of a dubious penalty, I think it's fair to say. The trailing leg does look to catch Swift, but all things considered, it was a very soft penalty that is converted, and West Brom going at half-time 1-0 up. Have to admit, two brilliantly worked goals from Sunderland though to turn this one around. The first one, a bullet header. The second one, brilliant bit of interplay. Pritchard laying up Sirkin for the finish. 2-1 Sunderland, and suddenly the playoff picture is completely flipped in its head. Now what's interesting is West Brom do still have a game in hand to play. They've played 43 so far. Blackburn also in the same boat as well, with that game in hand against Burnley to come. But I don't see any of those sides having a flawless run between now and the end of the season in terms of picking up a maximum of 9 points from their remaining matches. So I really think that should Sunderland win their last two matches, finish the season on 71 points, I do think that'll be enough to get them over the line, especially considering they do have a superior goal difference to Millwall at this stage, who are on 65 points as well as them. Midweek for West Brom is going to be absolutely crucial now, and whether or not they can turn things around against Sheffield United, their remaining three fixtures being against the Blades, Norwich and Swansea, which won't be easy. And before we hop into the midweek action, we also had Sheffield United involved in the FA Cup semi-final against Manchester City. And in the end, I think this one was as one-sided as a lot of us had predicted. We'd seen earlier on in this competition just how good this Man City side are, absolutely wiping the floor with Burnley. And to be fair to Sheffield United, I think they did well to keep this one down for as long as they did. Obviously, it was that penalty they gave away just before half-time, which Mahrez sticks away. And Mahrez really did steal the show for this one. The pick of the goals being the second, where, I mean, he just splits the Sheffield United defence like a knife through butter before ultimately completing his hat-trick in the second half. Towards the end of that game, I think that Paul Heckingbottom sort of had one eye on the league, withdrawing a few of their players with that game midweek against West Brom on their mind. But yeah, Sheffield United's cup run coming to an end, but all their efforts will now turn to midweek when they can seal up promotion. But guys, those were all the matches we had going on over the weekend in both the Championship and in the FA Cup. Before we go ahead and wrap up today's video, we also have 3 matches coming up in midweek with massive significance at both the top and bottom of the table. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on these down below as well. So with the first of our midweek matches, we've got a cracker. Blackburn up against Burnley. There's going to be plenty of drama and spite to this fixture. Already things boiling up with everything off the pitch between these two, with the reduced ticket allocation that Burnley fans have been given for this fixture. But ultimately the context coming into this one is that Burnley have the chance of sealing up the league title away at their arch rivals, and I mean, what could be better than that? There's no doubt that Burnley have fizzled out a little bit over these past few weeks, albeit against QPR it was a little bit of a freak result given how many chances they had. They went back to their strongest available starting 11, and on another day could have scored 3 or 4 goals against that QPR side, but it didn't quite fall to them. I mean, no doubt that Company is going to get this Burnley squad really fired up for this game against Blackburn because of what it means to the fans. And from Blackburn's perspective, they've also been fizzling out recently. I especially think that their last 2 results, conceding last-minute equalisers against Coventry and Preston, psychologically, that's got to take a lot out of you. But from their stance, they win this game, they're back in the top 6, and suddenly their fate is back in their own hands as well. At their best, there's no doubt that Burnley, I think, win this fixture, but because of that seed of doubt we've had, because of the drop-off in performance lately, that makes this fixture a little bit more interesting. The reverse fixture between these two, Burnley absolutely wiped the floor with Blackburn. I don't think this fixture is going to be quite as one-sided, but with the way Blackburn have been going recently, I think Burnley get back to winning ways here. Score prediction, I'm going 2-1 Burnley on the road, and for them to seal up the league title in style. We also have plenty on the line when it comes to Sheffield United and West Brom. How much is that loss to Sunderland going to affect West Brom in this game? Well, this is their chance to really go ahead and make a statement and bounce back immediately. Capitalise on that game in hand they have on the fellow promotion chasers going for the top 6, but away at Sheffield United isn't going to be easy. I think Sheffield United always saw that FA Cup semi-final against Man City as a little bit of a free hit, and sealing up promotion, which could be achieved by winning this one against West Brom, is ultimately what matters in this fixture. It's a tough one to predict because West Brom, I still think, stand a good chance of getting over the line and into the top 6 if they do manage to take advantage of their 3 remaining fixtures. But with that being said, I think the Blades, with the home crowd backing them, wanting to get things done with a couple of games remaining, I think they do win this fixture at home. Score prediction, I'm going to go 2-0 Sheffield United, and then for them to be promoted. And then to go ahead and seal things up, on Thursday night we have Rotherham going up against Cardiff in a crunch match at the bottom of the Championship. This game having some extra spice to it because of how it got called off in the first place. Obviously it was Cardiff on the day who were the much better side when these sides met a few weeks ago. Ultimately postponed due to weather conditions, and it will be replayed from the start. In terms of where each side is situated in the league, this one's really finely balanced. Both sides on 46 points at the moment, 3 points above the relegation zone. So a win for either side here would put a massive cushion between themselves and the bottom 3, and a loss for either side would definitely keep either one well rooted and in it. I definitely think we've seen an upturn from Cardiff recently, a win and a draw in their last 2 fixtures. Probably quite unlucky not to have got a win against Stoke as well, given the missed penalty in that game. In terms of Rotherham, we've seen a little bit more of a dip for them recently without a win now in their last 4 matches, but they have shown themselves to be especially competitive in these sorts of home fixtures. For a prediction here, I just think because of the previous meeting and how Cardiff had the edge in that one, I'm just edging towards Cardiff in this game. Rotherham could well pull something out of the bag, but score prediction there, I'm going 2-1 Cardiff on the road, which would be an interesting result and still leave Rotherham very much in it. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and do get all your thoughts down below on all of the recent talking points that we've had cropping up in the Championship over this past week or so. Apart from that, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.